What is up, my beautiful people? Welcome to the third episode of the Made to Excel Fitness Podcast, the fitness podcast for you, by you. I'm your host, Mark Torres, and I cannot stop bored eating. Hello. Today, it is March 23rd. We're in day 7 of quarantine. Well, at least it's day 7 for me. My last day of work was last Monday. Some of you guys are maybe even deeper into this. 7 days in, there's been a lot of Netflix watching. There's been a lot of on my phone. I got my weekly screen report yesterday. It's saying I spend an average of 7.5 hours on my phone a day, which is ridiculous. Granted, a lot of it is filming video, editing video. I do all that on my phone. But I spent like a total of 9 hours on Facebook last week, a bunch of hours on the internet, a bunch of hours on Instagram, right? There's a lot of time spent looking at my phone, on top of the fact that I'm watching a lot of TV. So there's a lot of screen time going on while we're all at home. I'm assuming a lot of it is going to be very similar for you guys. So quarantine has been a lot of screen time. So interestingly enough, when this happened, when the whole coronavirus shutdown happened, and non-essential businesses were forced to close, I thought that for sure, a lot of the content that was going to be out there, which is true, and a lot of the content that I was going to make was going to be at-home workout content, right? I didn't think I would have to talk about nutrition or diet or things of that nature because, well, first and foremost, a lot of my content is already about that. I think fat loss is the one thing that intrigues me the most when it comes to fitness, but I think that since gyms have closed and a lot of people are having to work out at home, there would be a lot of fluctuations towards doing that. And I think that is the case. I've done it myself. I've got 3 full follow along at home workouts. They're on my YouTube page if you want to go check those out. Hopefully you guys are enjoying that and following along. But everybody and their mother are doing that, right? Which is fine, right? The more information for you guys to follow along out there, the better, right? You have a variety. Variety is the spice of life, you know? Find the workouts that you like, do them, continue to make progress at home, by all means. That's fantastic. But I think the thing that I wasn't anticipating when this whole thing happened was bored eating, right? I assumed grocery runs are going to be down. Eating out is going to be down, right? There's no such thing as dine-in anymore, at least for the time being. Everything's takeout or drive-through. So grocery runs are at a minimum. Eating out is at a minimum. I thought nutrition would kind of sort itself out. But the last thing that I thought about, the thing that I wasn't anticipating, was bored eating. And I think that having so much time on our hands, especially myself, I'm a prolific bored eater. I get bored, I start rummaging through the cabinets, right? What is there to eat? And I'm not a chef. I'm not a cook by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not making myself food. Let's be honest. I'll burn whatever. So I'm not making myself meals. I'm eating just prepackaged snacks, and most of them are going to be, I don't like to say the word bad or good because those are not real things, but are not going to be great for me in the long run. So I'm just eating like crazy all the time, it feels like. And I'm assuming that some of you guys out there are in the same boat as me. So I wrote an article on MTEFit.com, posted it this morning, not too long ago. It's called The Corona Diet, How to Combat Bored Eating. And in today's episode, I'm going to go through some of that. This is more than likely going to be a 2-part episode. I'll go through about half the article. If you don't want to wait for next week's podcast episode, go to the website right now. Check it out. It's only a 7-minute read. It's a quick read. I won't go as in-depth in this podcast as I do in the article, so definitely go check it out if you're interested in that. How to combat bored eating, because that seems to be the biggest problem that I see when it comes to health and fitness. Let me be clear, that's not the biggest problem in the world. There's a lot bigger things happening, but as it pertains to health and fitness, that seems to be enemy number 1 right now, I think, when it comes to staying healthy in the midst of this pandemic. Let's hop right into it. First and foremost, I start off the article by explaining the whole bored eating thing, and I say that in this article, I'm not going to tell you what to eat and how much to eat of it, because you guys know that information already. Despite what you think you may or may not know about nutrition, you guys know 85 to 90% of what you need to know to make progress. You know that eating 12 donuts in a day isn't going to be great for your health, the same way you know that eating 1 donut every once in a while ain't going to kill you either, right? Calories are king. Keep your calories in check. You know what foods are going to be better for you than not, and keep on plugging. You guys know that information already, so I don't have to spew that information to you guys all the time. I might make an article on that in the future, but for now, bored eating tips, right? So tip number one, if you're gonna snack regardless, if you don't see bored eating, eliminating bored eating as an option for you, just getting healthier snacks, which seems like an obvious thing, but getting lower caloric, less calorically dense snacks to replace higher calorically dense snacks is going to go a long way to helping you save calories. And I think in the article I use the example of popcorn and Doritos. If you eat 1 ounce of popcorn, it's about 100 calories. If you eat 1 ounce of Doritos, it's about 150 calories. So every ounce that you eat of popcorn versus Doritos, you're saving yourself 50 calories. So of course, if you're just still eating ungodly amounts of popcorn, it ain't gonna matter, and you're gonna blow over what your caloric daily needs are, regardless if it's the healthier option, and you're gonna just not make progress. So to an extent, it'll help. You'll save calories, but if you still are blowing it out of the water, you're just stuffing your face at all times, it ain't gonna matter. So if all else fails, if you're gonna be a snacker anyways, try to get some healthier options. So go through the rest of the article, listen to the rest of this podcast and the one next week, and if nothing else works, at least try to do that. But going into tip number one when it comes to bored eating is being mindful. And I think that the first step to solving a problem is acknowledging that there's a problem in the first place. So knowing that you're bored eating is step number one to fixing your bored eating. And some of you guys out there may not realize that you're doing it, and now that I've shed a light on it, now you have the ammo to stop bored eating in your daily lives. So for some people, that might be just exactly what they needed. I didn't realize I was doing this. Sounds about right. I've been bored eating, so let me stop doing it. But simple in concept, difficult in execution. For some people that might work, for some people it might not work. They might know that they're bored eating and still be unable to stop themselves from doing it. So, step one, be mindful, know that you're doing it, see how that works. And at least now that you know that you're doing it, you can take the steps to address that and to try to combat that and to be better about it. So that was step number one, is be mindful, know that you're doing it. Step number two, avoid mindless eating as much as possible. You're sitting in front of a TV for God knows how long. A lot. I'm guessing a lot. You guys are out there just cruising through Netflix, right? Netflix is going to run out of things to show you guys. You're watching shows, you're watching movies. Somebody just died. Something funny's happening. There's a new problem to be solved. You're lost in these shows. Your mind is elsewhere. And once you add food to that, it's a recipe for disaster, right? Because your mind is in the show, your mind is in the movie. You're not being mindful as to what you're eating. So you bring a bag of Doritos down with you, and all of a sudden, you've already crushed half the bag. You didn't even realize that you were eating it in the first place. So try to avoid screens as much as possible. Screens meaning the TV, it could be your phone, it could be anything. Imagine if you were to take that same bag of Doritos that you just killed while watching your favorite TV show, and you took it into a room where there was nothing in it. There was no TV, there was no phone. It was just a blank room with 4 walls, and you sat there staring at the walls eating your Doritos. You would probably eat less Doritos there than if you were doing it while watching TV. So try to avoid mindless eating as much as possible. Avoid screens as much as possible when you're eating your foods, your favorite foods, unless you do step number 3. So step number 3 is pre-portion your foods. And by pre-portion your foods, I mean that most foods come in a vessel already that you can eat directly out of. Ice creams come in pints, chips come in bags. These vessels are not clear. You don't know exactly how much is in it. You don't know exactly how much you're eating of it unless you're actively looking down into the container, right? So if you are going to sit in front of a TV, if you are going to watch something on your phone when you're eating food, take the thing out of the original vessel and put it into a different vessel where you can control the amount that you're eating, right? So if you're going to eat Doritos, say, all right, I'm going to take 15 Doritos out of this bag and put it on this plate, and I'm going to sit down in front of a TV and watch TV and eat these 15 Doritos. Same thing with ice cream. I'm going to take a quarter of this pint, I'm going to put it in a bowl, and I'm going to go watch my favorite TV show. Now you've controlled the amount that you're eating. You've set a maximum amount of snack consumption by putting it into a pre-portioned plate or bowl or whatever the case may be. So now that you're mindless eating, you're sitting in front of a TV, but you've set already the boundaries as to how much you can eat. You topped it out, right? And of course, you can always go back to the kitchen and grab more chips or grab more ice cream. but the odds of you doing that are a lot less likely than if you just brought the whole thing with you to start with. So of course it's null and void if you keep going back for more, but you're lazy, I'm lazy, we ain't getting back up once we sit down. So pre-portioning your food is going to be a really good way to save calories in the long run. And I'll cut it there when it comes to the article. There's 4 more sections. I'll go over that next week. Part 2 of this podcast next Monday. I'll go through the rest of it. But if you want to read it all right now, it's on the website, MTEFit.com, the Corona Diet, How to Combat Bored Eating. And I've got some questions from you guys. I love the questions you guys send me, so continue to send me questions. I'll go through some of them now. I'm not going to have time for all of them, so whatever I don't answer today, I'll answer it next week. So I'll try to cut this kind of short. I don't want to keep you guys forever, right? I know you guys have busy schedules now. You know, I don't want to keep you guys. So question number 1, how to improve your posture, right? And this was framed as I'm staring at my phone a lot more in the middle of this quarantine. I feel like I'm hunched over. How do I improve my posture? And assuming that this is an acute incident, right? Acute being your posture is normally pretty decent, and you feel like now that there's a lot of looking at your phone because you're home a lot, now your posture is kind of going to shit, I guess. I think the main thing to think about is to do exercises that activate the upper back. Banded face pulls, banded pull aparts. If you lay down on the ground and you raise your hands up and do a W pull, you can probably Google those. Anything that's going to use the muscles of your upper back, your rear delts, your rhomboids, your traps, things of that nature, wake those muscles up, make sure that they're still like being used, is going to help really open you up and kind of remain upright. Dr. John Russian, I'm pretty sure I just butchered his name, but he made a post a couple days ago, or maybe it was an article, that he said, now that you're sitting at home for hours on end watching TV, watching things on your phone, whatever, every hour try to do 10 reps of a banded face pull. Try to wake up those muscles, make sure they're still there, make sure they're still functioning. Of course they're still functioning, but making sure that you know, your body knows that they're there and they're functioning will go a long way to kind of pulling yourself back upright. So doing those every hour for 10 reps is going to be a really good way to get a bunch of reps in during the course of a day. That's going to help you be upright more often than not. And I think that half of it is being mindful. Sometimes you just don't know that you're hunched forward, and recognizing the fact that you're hunched forward can allow you to kind of make yourself back upright. But if this is a problem that's chronic and has happened before the whole thing happened where we were stuck at home, then this is going to be something that probably takes a lot more time, care, and attention that goes above my pay grade as a personal trainer, and probably goes into more of the PT realm of training, realm of practice. So if this is an acute thing, just work on exercises that are going to help wake up the muscles of the upper back. If not, if it's a more chronic thing, then there might be some more intense focus that needs to be put on that. So hopefully, that was a fantastic question, by the way. Hopefully that answered your question. Question number 2. When are we going to get that Warzone W? Never. I'm trash at Warzone. Question 3. How do you feel about Tyrod as QB1? For those who may or may not know, I'm a gigantic Chargers fan, and this is a question from my buddy Brett, who is also a big Chargers fan. Tyrod, we're screwed. The Chargers have a bunch of pieces in place, I think, this year to make a deep playoff run, and I don't think Tyrod's the guy to take us to the promised land. I don't know that there's ever been a person in NFL history that has been a proverbial backup quarterback for forever and kind of transform into a starter that took a team places. I don't know. Nick Foles, but he doesn't really count. He kind of came in after the fact and had a miracle run, but you know, going into the season as having a proverbial backup be your starter, probably it ain't great for us. Hopefully we draft somebody, Tua, Herbert, whoever the case may be. Hopefully we get one of those guys instead. I don't, Tyrod, I'm sure you're a good guy, but I don't have faith in you. At least not yet. I hope you prove me wrong. I don't know. We'll see. We'll do one more. Ooh, okay, good one. Good one to end on. Final say, can you lose weight and build muscle at the same time? And they said build muscle and strength is how they phrased it. And I think those are two kind of different things, but I'll address the muscle and the weight loss part. And I think the answer is yes and no. At the very exact same time, No. I think those things are mutually exclusive in the fact that you've got to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight, to lose fat, and you've got to be in a caloric surplus to build muscle and to build mass. So you can't do both of those things at the same exact time. But depending on how you structure it, let's say you look at a week has 7 days. If you're in a caloric deficit for 4 days, and if you're in a caloric surplus for 3 of those days, you have 1 extra caloric deficit day. You're technically, if you do it correctly, in a caloric deficit for the week, but you have 3 days where you're in a caloric surplus, where you can do your heavy training, where you can potentially build mass. Might not be a lot because you'd have to do this in very small increments, but you could technically build mass in those 3 days and lose fat in the other 4 days. So in the span of a week, are you losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time? Yes. At the exact same time, no. But it depends on how you structure your training blocks, how you structure your nutrition, things of that nature. So over the course of a year, let's say, it is 100% possible to lose fat and build muscle. It just depends on how you go about doing it. At the same exact time, no. And I might do an entire podcast episode on this, but I think that's a pretty good starting point. That's a pretty good ending point for this podcast. Lose fat, gain muscle at the same exact time? No, but in the same time period, absolutely. Depends on how you structure everything. But that'll wrap up today's episode. 16 minutes. We're cruising. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the show. If you are, please subscribe to the show. Please leave me more questions. I loved your questions. I want to have questions to answer at the end of every podcast episode. And if there's ever a really good one like that last one, that might become a whole podcast episode in and of itself. But anyways, follow me on Instagram, YouTube. I appreciate you all. Hopefully you're all staying safe. Hopefully you're all staying sane. Hopefully you're practicing your social distancing. Hopefully you're not being a dickhead. Hopefully you guys are thriving out there, remaining fit, remaining healthy. And that's about it. Made to Excel Fitness Podcast, a fitness podcast for you, by you. I'm your host, Mark Torres. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.